Beyond the viewport, stars stood as mute observers while the Imperial dreadnought Virex Altar journeyed through the emptiness. Its dark hull moved like a knife across black velvet. Within, the quiet was punctuated solely by the steady hiss of sealed portals and the metallic tread of armored guards. In the frigid heart of the chamber, two young women knelt, their wrists secured by magnetic bonds emitting a soft electric blue glow. Claire's dark eyes swiftly scanned the space, imprinting on each ventilation grate and surveillance unit. Her hair, formerly neatly styled, now adhered to her jaw in perspiration-soaked locks. She fought the impulse to tremble. Opposite her, Nyla maintained a fixed stare at the ground, yet her fair fingers tapped a steady rhythm against her thigh, a covert signal only her sibling would comprehend. They were maintaining contact. The instant of their apprehension replayed in Aera's thoughts, akin to a faulty simulation. The outpost had been tranquil, situated on the orbiting research moon of Delva's 9, where they operated under the Earth Scientific Accord, dedicated to deciphering alien DNA structures. The sisters were not combatants, they were intellectuals, innovators, visionaries, yet none of that signified anything when the heavens fractured and the black armor stormtroops surged inside. No formal announcement, no prior alert was given. The Empire's strike was deliberate and abrupt. Aera had scarcely managed to activate the emergency failsafe before the laboratory was overwhelmed. Individually, her associates were neutralized. Some were slain, others forcibly removed. The Empire's objective wasn't merely resource acquisition, it sought minds. Nyla had cried out when they seized her. She struggled more fiercely for that than for anything else. Her knuckles bled against a soldier's faceplate. She screamed until her throat was raw, and then came unconsciousness. Now kneeling within the central chamber of an extraterrestrial warship, her thoughts were frozen, her rage gathered. The sentinels flanking them remained silent. They were excessively disciplined, unnervingly devoid of humanity. Not a single face could be discerned beneath the dark helmets. Their energy weapons pulsed with deadly preparedness. Every motion was precise, lacking any individual character. A piercing frequency resonated through the chamber. The girls raised their gaze simultaneously. The overseer made his entrance. He was taller than the guards, clad in ceremonial plating adorned with symbols that gleamed like spilled oil. His countenance was exposed, yet monstrous. An elongated cranium with eyes resembling molten amber. He bore no arms. His voice served as his sole weapon. "You are Aera and Nyla, he stated in flawless Terran standard. "You are scheduled for processing." "We are non-combatants," Nyla croaked. "You have infringed upon interstellar statutes." The overseer's mouth curved slightly, approaching a smile. "Earth holds no membership in the Accord," he countered. "It is merely endured. You are intruding within Imperial territory." "That is false," Aera retorted. "Delva's 9 is a zone designated by Earth under Charter 47 Alpha." The overseer disregarded her. He lifted a hand and two drones emerged from the bulkheads, hovering towards them with clinical precision. Probes extended, conducting vital scans. "Both of you possess significant value," he declared. "Your investigations into quantum-encoded DNA and adaptive neurosystems have drawn our notice. You shall serve the Empire." "We would prefer death," Nyla stated, her voice unwavering. "That," the overseer responded, "can certainly be arranged." Yet he did not end their lives. Instead, he departed, his exit indicated only by the metallic scrape of the hatch sealing in his wake. The young women were pulled upright by guards who neither spoke nor acknowledged their struggle. They were escorted down passages illuminated by pulsating veins of extraterrestrial circuitry, moving deeper into the ship's interior. They were confined within a cell unlike any earthly prison, a hexagonal compartment featuring variable gravity and transparent walls that became opaque unpredictably. No solitude, no regular sleep, disorientation employed as a tool. Days elapsed, perhaps only hours. Time held no significance in this place. Aera started counting the cycles of the food delivery drones, using them as a makeshift timepiece. She and Nyla conversed infrequently, clustering together during breaks to share warmth and share insights. Every look from Aera served as a quiet prompt: observe, strategize, endure. Nyla did more than merely observe. Her neural interface, a formerly classified project enabling direct connection with AI systems, remained concealed beneath the cerebral tissue of her skull. Imperial scans had registered its presence. She maintained her neural output below the detection threshold, but gradually commenced probing the frequencies within the cells surrounding technology. A faint signal here, a subtle impulse there, and the vessel responded. Aera initially noted subtle alterations in the illumination, a series of wall flickers that appeared deliberate. When she looked at Nyla, her sister offered a barely perceptible nod. They were not without recourse. Concurrently, throughout the vessel, commanders discussed their subsequent action. The Empire possessed no understanding of what they had seized. They perceived Earth as isolated, unsophisticated, a remote region populated by tenacious insects. The girls were viewed as a potential bargaining chip, perhaps a utility, but to those with the proper insight, they represented something far greater, significantly more. Aera Voss had collaborated on the design of the initial predictive algorithm capable of forecasting wormhole collapse events with almost flawless accuracy. Nyla devised the encryption shield that safeguarded Earth's most secure AI installations. Collectively, their contributions constituted the foundation of Earth's military defensive networks, a reality the Empire would apprehend only when it was too late. Within the cell, Nyla abruptly flinched. A spasm of discomfort creased her forehead. "What occurred?" Aera inquired, moving closer. "I attempted something novel," Nyla murmured. "I accessed a deeper layer of the ship's communication network. It resisted." "Did you acquire any information?" Nyla nodded. "I now know our location, and I've identified the central processing unit." Aera blinked. "How in the void did you manage?" "Do not question it. Simply understand that I can interface with it, potentially even manipulate it. However, I require additional time." Time, Aera reflected somberly, was precisely what they might lack. That period, assuming a concept of night existed aboard this vessel, the guards reappeared, the overseer accompanied them. "You are scheduled for relocation," he announced. "Your consciousness will be extracted and uploaded for examination. Your physical bodies will cease to be required." Nyla paled. Aera rose suddenly, fists clenched. "You stated we were valuable. You stated we would serve." "And you shall," the overseer replied with finality, "in digital perpetuity." They offered no struggle as they were marched into the transport bay. Resistance at this juncture would have been self-destruction. But beneath their composed facades, the girls' intellects operated in concert, just as they consistently had. In Aera's pocket, stitched into the lining of her trousers, a micro-engineered fragment of carbonite alloy rested against her hip, a last-ditch instrument virtually undetectable. As the chamber's hatch sealed behind them, the light flickered once in a sequence Aera recognized. 3 short, 1 long. Nyla's signal. She was connected. Whatever transpired next, they would not yield silently, nor would Earth. The communication arrived via a disturbance in the darkness, a transmission almost indistinguishable from the background noise of deep space. Encrypted, broken into segments, and hidden within the static of a derelict communications satellite, it rode the fringe of a neutrino burst before reaching Earth's orbital path. It sufficed. Within a secure command center situated beneath Antarctica's icy crust, the alert triggered a cascade of events. Red directive protocols were initiated, covert alarms activated, satellites were repositioned. Deep underground, engines of war stirred, and high orbit became agitated with the faint gleam of recently mobilized fleets. General Adrian Knox stood still before the primary display as the deciphered image sharpened into clarity. Aera and Nyla, kneeling, restrained, flanked by Imperial soldiers in dark armor. Their state was critical, but they were living. Crucially, they were communicating. Knox could interpret the subtle cues in their eye movements, their finger spasms. The girls were transmitting data, and someone on the receiving end had facilitated its passage. Aegis verifies the location, a voice stated from behind him. Sector 11D, Imperial Controlled Territory, not a standard patrol area, appears to be an unregistered dreadnought hangar. Knox exhaled slowly through his nostrils. Then we strike where they least expect it. Across the planet, humanity's meticulously maintained neutrality shattered. For many years, Earth had maintained a discreet presence in galactic affairs, developing silently, observing silently, preparing silently. The Empire had interpreted the silence as acquiescence. They had overlooked the underlying patterns, the clandestine alliances, the weaponized AI systems concealed within terraforming satellites. But now the populace watched as the footage was disseminated. It spread rapidly across every inhabited colony. Earth's offspring, two of its most brilliant minds, had been seized. The response was profound. Demonstrations erupted on the Martian capital of Ares Prime. Activist groups disrupted Empire-linked trade networks. Independent planets, previously wary of Terran aspirations, demanded explanations from the Galactic Council, and Earth provided none openly. Instead, the strategic centers were activated. Knox's voice resonated through the underground command facility. Initiate Phase 1. All Aegis fleets to silence protocols. We do not retaliate, we eradicate. Vessels slipped into the void, graceful ships encased in refractive plating, rendering them invisible to light and radar. They advanced without noise or warning towards the border systems. Some were crewless, piloted by AI older than the Empire's awareness of Earth. Others transported Black Ops units specifically trained for vacuum combat and retribution. They displayed no banners, they had no need to. Above the lunar installation, a grid of quantum relay towers became operational. The transmission was straightforward. We are approaching. Simultaneously, Nyla sat with her back against the cell wall, eyes partially closed but acutely vigilant. Her neural interface pulsed beneath her cranial plating, subtly synchronizing with the alien system she had penetrated. She did not need to break the code. She had taught machines how to generate their own. This system was resisting, undeniably, but it was not invulnerable to compromise. Aera paced slowly, purposefully with each traversal of the cell. She counted steps, measured intervals. She had calculated the distance between drone access points, determined the patrol cycle of the external guards. She would be prepared, but the opportunity would be limited. You appear to be attempting to excavate a tunnel with your feet, Nyla remarked softly. I am practicing, Aera responded, maintaining her pace. If we have a single chance at this, I will not hesitate. Nyla leaned her head back. They are relocating us shortly. That chamber the overseer spoke of, he was truthful. It exists. I have viewed the blueprints. They plan to upload our awareness and dispose of our physical forms. Aera stopped. Her voice, when she spoke, was chilling. That is not occurring. I can disrupt the system, crash the memory array, but I will need to connect directly to their mainframe node. Nyla looked at her. That is when I will be exposed. Then I shall gain you time. It was a long-standing pledge forged in their youth. When Nyla had fractured her arm ascending the water tower in New Calgary, Aera had carried her 5 kilometers through the snow to find assistance. Regardless of the difficulty, one sister fought while the other operated. The strategy had never failed them. Distant across the cosmos, Earth's stealth Phantom Claw arrived in the system, silently penetrating the Empire's surveillance grid. It drifted amidst comet debris until it achieved alignment with the colossal dreadnought. Within the ship's command center, Commander Rios examined the schematics Nyla had embedded in her transmission. Architectural segments, thermal signatures, and a blinking code signifying now. Authorization to breach? The operations lead requested. Rios nodded. Initiate entry. The claw disappeared from sensors and materialized inside the dreadnought's hangar, tearing through space with a controlled pulse of folded gravity before alert systems could activate. Its drone pods were deployed, dispersing like insects into the station's internal passages. They carried disruptors and diversions, but most crucially, they carried time. In the processing chamber, the overseer stood beside a console emitting neural light. He observed Aera and Nyla with the detachment of scientists preparing to analyze a fascinating but expendable sample. "You will not perceive discomfort," he stated, his voice modified by the translator field. "Your awareness will dissociate within seconds. Efficient." Nyla lifted her head. "I understand your language now," she said quietly. "And your system possesses a vulnerability in the second-tier core. I have developed a patch for it." The overseer blinked, then blinked again. "What did you state?" "I stated," Nyla whispered, "you should have scanned more thoroughly." She lunged, not towards him, but towards the interface node. Her fingers sprang open, releasing a glinting spike of altered technology that embedded itself in the console. Simultaneously, Aera burst into action, tearing free the microblade hidden in her sleeve, slashing it through her restraints. She moved like a wraith, precise and enraged, incapacitating one guard with a kick that fractured bone. The lights wavered. The ship's systems shrieked. Nyla was already within the network. Her mind interacted with data constructs, absorbing, altering, disrupting. She was no longer merely a hacker. She was a virus coded for retribution, tailored for imperial disintegration. Aera defended the chamber's entrance alone, blood trickling from her forehead. Her body was tense defensively. More guards were approaching. She was aware of it, but she wasn't contemplating escape. She was focused on gaining 10 additional seconds. The Claw's insertion team arrived with precise timing. Reinforced suits impacted the deck, weapons raised, spreading out to neutralize threats. Rios knelt beside Aera as the situation began to stabilize. "Status?" he inquired. "Still breathing," Aera muttered. "Attend to my sister." They turned towards the interface node. Nyla lay still, eyes open but vacant, lips moving silently. Rios checked the data feed. "Her neural link remains active. She is locked in." "Extract her carefully," Aera stated, stepping towards them. "She is restructuring their systems from within." "Can she complete it?" "She will." Outside the chamber, the dreadnought pulsed with disruption. Hatches malfunctioned. Weapon systems entered reboot cycles. Docking clamps released. A signal radiated from the ship into deep space, carrying a silent message. "They are not what we assumed." Back on Earth, General Knox read the intercepted transmission from the Claw's AI. His lips slowly parted, as if beginning to simple before he realized too late that it signified conflict. "Broadcast alert," he commanded. "No more concealment. The Empire has made this a personal matter." The quiet within the Imperial dreadnought was misleading. Beneath the stillness, its core systems groaned in defiance. Routines were corrupted, subroutines overwritten. What had formerly been a symbol of galactic supremacy was now a nexus of error messages and cascading code, haunted not by specters but by a human girl who had fundamentally altered its structure from the interior. Nyla sat upright in the Phantom Claw's medical bay, her skin damp with sweat and her pupils still dilated from neural exertion. Her breathing was shallow. Although disconnected from the interface, fragments of the Empire's language, data, and design still lingered behind her eyes like residual images. She could sense the dreadnought as if it were a phantom limb. Aera sat beside her, one arm around her shoulder, anchoring her to the present. "You've returned," she whispered. "Not entirely," Nyla murmured. "Portions of me remain there, observing, listening. You disabled the ship. I infected more than just that single vessel." She turned slowly, her gaze steady yet distant. "I reached 3 other dreadnoughts linked by a shared failsafe network. They are disintegrating now. Commands looping, targeting protocols failing. Their command structure is uncertain whom to trust." Aera's grip tightened slightly. "That isn't merely sabotage, that's destabilization." Nyla nodded. "It is what they did to us, a reversal." Commander Rios entered, his armor marked with carbon scoring. His visor retracted, revealing a face both weary and grimly determined. General Knox is en route. Aegis Fleet Theta is establishing a cordon at the system's periphery. Whatever remains of the Empire's local command will either collapse or retreat. I have no concern for them, Aera stated. I want the Overseer. I want the one who regarded us as components to be harvested. Rios paused, then offered her a data slate. A static image displayed the Overseer's profile, no longer unmarked. His record now flagged him as a rogue element, bearing a bounty not from Earth, but from the Empire itself. They are attempting to expunge him, Rios said. Attribute it to containment failure, contain the fallout, claim this wasn't standard procedure. Aera gazed at the image for an extended moment. Then we shall render him unforgettable. The claw did not return to Earth. It plunged deeper into Imperial domain, operating without authorization, without affiliation. It evolved into a legend, a phantom vessel rumored to surface moments before Imperial outposts disappeared from the network. Survivors, on the rare occasions they existed, spoke of systems attacking themselves, of all lights extinguishing simultaneously, of messages whispered through data streams and voices that were alien. Nyla's consciousness, fragmented though it was, had sown seeds, viral code that mutated, protocols that echoed her name like sacred text. The Empire scrambled to counter, deploying cybernetic inhibitors and AI nullifiers, but the infection was no longer purely mechanical. It had adapted from program thought to instinctual action. Within Earth's underground command center, General Knox directed the conflict with systematic intensity. For each Imperial battalion deployed, 3 more forces of resistance arose, humans and former allies who had long resented Imperial dominion. The recording of Aera and Nyla's capture had ignited something primal, something uncontrollable. Earth had not initiated hostilities, it had simply reacted. In the ruins of a demolished listening post, Aera stood over the remains of a comms officer who had attempted to ensnare them. Her blade was still slick with blood. Her breathing was steady. This was no longer retribution, it was imperative. You are transforming, Nyla said from behind her. We both are. I meant more than just strategies. Aera turned to face her sister. What do you perceive? Someone who shows no hesitation, someone I scarcely recognize. Aera did not recoil. Then perhaps that is precisely what they require me to become. Nyla's silence did not signify agreement, yet it was not opposition either. In truth, she too sensed the transformation. The further she extended herself through the network, the less she felt like the girl who had once jested about attending MIT. Her consciousness had traversed billions of lines of code, residual memories, and alien logic, rewriting the fundamental structure of enemy vessels. She had become the spectral presence within their technology, and the Empire was beginning to grasp it. On an orbital station above the mineral planet Virex, a fleet admiral awoke to discover his system inaccessible. The hatches of his command chamber would not open. The air vents emitted static. Then a single word materialized on every console: return them. He had barely an instant to scream before the oxygen was depleted. Far away, an emergency assembly convened. High Lords of the Empire convened via holographic projection. Some were desperate, some enraged, none were cohesive. They attributed the collapse to one another. They clamored for reprisal. But the data did not deceive. Every countermeasure failed. Every trace led to voids in the records, locations expunged, coordinates altered. Even the Empire's predictive algorithms could no longer forecast Terran intentions. Humanity had become unpredictable, inscrutable, perilous. The term war was whispered in apprehension, not challenge. Concurrently, Aera and Nyla followed the Overseer's path through derelict research facilities and purged manifests. Each site recounted a history of excess, experiments conducted on other species, on dissidents, on children. The Overseer had not been an isolated fanatic. He had been the cutting edge of a policy concealed beneath the Empire's facade of dignity. At an aged colonial science installation, they discovered cages still vibrating with residual energy. Nyla's hands trembled as she accessed the logs. There were hundreds of names, many still missing. I believed it was only us, she whispered. No, Aera said, her voice low. We were merely the ones who escaped. They returned to the Claw altered. Their next objective was not a vessel, but a data repository, the archive core in Sector Delta 7, where the Empire stored its records, its falsehoods, its history. If the truth of their actions could be revealed, truly brought to light, Earth would not need to launch further attacks. The galaxy would revolt independently, but the target was a stronghold guarded by AI sentinels and quantum encryption. Approaching it directly was a death sentence. Rios understood this. Capture there meant not just death, but complete obliteration by the Empire. Nyla offered a faint smile. Then let them attempt to erase my memory. The plan was conceptually straightforward. Infiltrate, transmit data, withdraw. Executing it, however, bordered on insanity. Yet as their vessel neared the central archive, the security measures began to fail. Illumination levels dropped. Automated weapons cycled through endless reboot sequences. Entrances that should have stayed locked swung open. Nyla had already gained access days earlier via the network, spending that duration fundamentally altering the system's core programming from within. When Ala and Rio entered the main server chamber, they found not resistance, but an unnerving stillness. A console at the room's heart glowed, marked by Nyla's distinct digital imprint. This is it, Ala confirmed. Transmit the evidence. Nyla's voice, digitally altered but firm, responded through the system. Once initiated, this cannot be undone. The full extent of the Empire's actions will be known. The Council, the outlying settlements, every sector. They will be forced to make a decision. The data transfer commenced. Information streamed forth, visuals, records, recordings of screams. The Empire's most concealed atrocities were exposed. Simultaneously, high within the council chambers, the initial seeds of rebellion took root. The oppressive system reeled under the revelation of its own depravity, its secrets no longer concealed. Nevertheless, even as they savored that fleeting triumph, Nyla understood this was merely the prelude to a larger conflict. The Overseer remained at large. The Empire, though crippled, still possessed the means to strike, as did they, and this time humankind faced the challenge with allies. The Overseer stood beneath the shattered peaks of the revered citadel on Fexus Prime, the central hub of the Empire's covert intelligence operations. He had shed the immaculate ceremonial attire of his rank. His clothing was burned, ripped, the emblem torn from his chest. The passageways behind him were hushed, deserted due to terror, not orders. Data repositories had been erased, AI processing units deactivated. Those who had remained loyal had either fled or turned on one another, their minds poisoned by malicious rumors that hissed his name. He gazed out at the horizon where twin suns cast a bloody light across the smog-filled atmosphere. Every action he had taken, every consciousness he had violated in the name of operational efficiency had led him to this point, on the periphery of his domain, now pursued by the very beings he had once contemptuously labeled as undeveloped. A signal emanated from the ruins, encrypted yet instantly recognizable. Her voice, softer than a fading echo, resonated with the force of a storm. You fled. He offered no verbal reply, aware she could perceive his thoughts across the link. You labeled us disposable assets. Now you seek refuge amidst debris. The Overseer turned deliberately, his gaze narrowing as the surrounding darkness seemed to coalesce. A refined spacecraft descended through the atmospheric murk, its dark plating gleaming like polished obsidian. No markings, no illumination, only focused determination. The Phantom Claw settled with precise elegance, its access ramp extending like a pronouncement of fate. Ala emerged first, encased in protective gear, her eyes sharp with resolve. Nyla followed, her previous trembling and fragmentation replaced by a newfound composure. A quiet strength resided within her now, a certainty forged in the trial of stolen recollections and rediscovered realities. The Overseer extended his hand slowly. Have you come to end my life? Ala did not respond. She simply advanced towards him, each footfall a resonant count to 0. "I was merely executing directives," he stated. "Every operation conducted by the Empire is officially authorized. Every experiment receives clearance. You were simply deviations, unavoidable losses." "Repeat that," Nyla commanded, halting a short distance away. He paused. For the first time in his extensive career, he perceived a quality he had never attributed to the human species, a sense of predestination. "You have ruined your own prospect," he declared. "This conflict you have provoked will not spare Earth. The Council will strike back. The Empire will adjust." Nyla inclined her head slightly. "The Council is already informed. They cast their votes. The resolution was approved yesterday." The Overseer's eyes widened slightly. "Your authorization has been revoked," she pressed on. "They have expunged your identity from official logs. You are an anomaly, and dispensable error in judgment. You represent the blunder they needed to erase in order to maintain what little authority they have left." His tone wavered. "They wouldn't dare." "They did," Ala interjected. "And their directive was for us to bring you in alive for adjudication." The Overseer managed a weak, empty laugh. "So your intention is to return me in shackles?" "No," Ala stated firmly. "We are not taking you back." He blinked, calculation momentarily displaced by bewilderment. "Then why—" Ala fired a single shot into his knee. He collapsed with a cry, grasping his injured leg, the sudden intense pain stripping away his remaining composure. Nyla advanced, kneeling beside him, her fingertips paused just above his temple. "You stole our consciousness," she murmured, "attempted to refashion us into compliant instruments. I will now reciprocate." He let out a high-pitched scream as her neural link established contact, effortlessly circumventing his defensive protocols. She required only moments, enough time to replicate the information he had taken, to document the full extent of his transgressions, to witness the countenances of every person he had ever reduced to a mere statistic. She pulled back, rising deliberately. "You will not be granted the oblivion of disappearing," she pronounced. "Therefore, we abandon you here with nothing, no past, no authority, no domain, only the specters." The Overseer writhed, his voice a mix of pleading and fury. "Do you believe you have triumphed?" "We are certain of it," Ala replied, turning her back on him. The two women walked away as the phantom claw ascended back into the atmosphere. The vessel's internal mechanisms, now seamlessly merged with Nyla's continuously developing programming, transported them across the vast stellar expanse. The Empire's central authority persisted, yet it was fundamentally broken, its fabricated narrative dismantled by undeniable evidence and by voices that now dared to articulate the truth. Rebellions had erupted in half a dozen star systems. Peripheral settlements repudiated their appointed leaders. Mercantile associations asserted their autonomy. Nevertheless, Earth did not seek domination. It extended an offer of partnership, contingent and wary, founded not on subjugation but on fairness. For the first time in centuries, the equilibrium of power changed without violent sacrifice. Aboard the ship, Nyla sat in the viewing lounge observing the distant gleam of stars. Ala joined her, sliding a warm cup into her hand. "I never expected us to make it this far," Nyla confessed. Ala offered a subtle smirk. "We didn't just survive, we were transformed." They sat in quiet contemplation for a while, the steady thrum of the engine's a rhythmic pulse in the darkness. "Perhaps we should head back to Earth," Nyla whispered. Ala nodded, then shook her head slightly. "Not yet." "Why not?" "Because there remain systems where expression is suppressed," she replied, "where silence is mandatory and the past is manipulated as a tool. We do not conclude this struggle by retreating. We conclude it by ensuring it can never resume." With that declaration, they charted a course further into the cosmos. No longer merely those who had endured, no longer those on the run. They embodied the future the Empire had dreaded, and now they were liberated to construct it.